So now I'm going to play you a 2-minute clip, and then after that 2-minute clip, I'll invite your thoughts. We're going to the Kemi Badenoch space, and this now scuffle that seems to be kicking off between our vice president and the would-be prime minister of the UK.
Who founded Facebook? The co-founder of Facebook was Eduardo Luis Sabirin, born in Sao Paulo, Brazil, of Jewish Brazilian ancestry. Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, was a migrant from South Africa. He owns SpaceX and now X, formerly Twitter. I can name names. Sergey Brin, the co-founder of Google, is worth over $30 billion. He's of Russian background. Rupert Murdoch, the chief executive of News Corp, is of Australian descent. Madeleine Albright, who became the United States Secretary of State, was of Czech origin. Steve Chen, the co-founder of YouTube, is originally from Taiwan. Immigrants build nations and immigrants build civilizations. One of the men in the front seat here has a thriving business in Namibia. He lived in Australia for over a decade, adding value to the Australian economy. Hence, there is a need for us to respect and cherish immigrants. Migrants are the source of life in all societies. Rishi Sunak, the former British Prime Minister, is originally from India. A very brilliant young man. He never denigrated his nation of ancestry, nor poured venoms on India. Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the British Labour or Conservative Party. We are proud of her, in spite of her efforts at denigrating her nation of origin. She is entitled to her own opinions. She has even every right to remove the Kemi from her name. But that does not underscore the fact that the greatest black nation on earth is the nation called Nigeria. 1 out of every 3.
All right, so that was Kashim Shettima's aside to Kemi Badenoch's excesses, running commentaries that a lot of people actually feel are somewhat denigrates the country. So that was Kashim Shettima's response. And then off the back of Kashim Shettima's response, the UK has picked up that storyline and is somewhat agitating the United Kingdom political space. Let me give you a 1-minute clip on how the UK is responding, then I'll invite your thoughts.
They're all what happened to her in the country a few times. But now Nigeria has hit back in the form of the vice president. Let's have a look at the Financial Times headline. Nigeria's vice president launches attack on Tory leader Kemi Badenoch. Kashim Shettima's comments follow criticism by the Conservative leader of the country where she grew up. What do you make of this diplomatic row, if you like?
It's not a very good look for Kemi Badenoch, I would say. But ultimately, when politicians make comments like this, it's always for their own political capital. And I would say the comments of the Nigerian vice president very much buy into something which is happening in the Nigerian media, where there are lots of media figures who attack Kemi Badenoch. And so the Nigerian vice president has seen that and has decided he wants to cash in on that anger for the way that she's speaking about the country that she grew up in after she was born in England. But at the same time, you never saw Priti Patel or Rishi Sunak talk about India in the way that Kemi Badenoch talks about Nigeria. And I would simply say, if you are a Brexiteer and you're saying we need to be expanding our global trade beyond the European Union, we want to be looking at emerging markets for growth, fastest growing markets, don't slag off one of the fastest growing economies in Africa with one of the youngest populations that you have a personal link to. I mean, the Nigerian vice president told her to change her name. That's embarrassing. Imagine how her family must feel about that. So I think she just needs to be a little bit more careful with her language. I think she can make the points that she makes about growing up in Nigeria without upsetting one of the biggest economies in Africa at the same time.
I mean, I suppose she might.
So there it is. I'm sure you've been following that with keen interest. So where are you positioned in this Kemi Badenoch controversy?
Well, I first of all think that when Kemi speaks, one could kind of say, was she that hot? Or is she saying the kinds of things that people say, the diaspora community, and is it popular opinion? You never know how angry or how hot a child is when things happen in their childhood. You have to concede that we deal with hurt differently. But having said that, I do not think that the platform that Kemi is on now, where truly and sincerely I'm proud of her, I wish her well, I'm happy that she's even able to get that far. I don't think it's a platform she needs to be using to put her ancestry down all the time. You sometimes I've seen some of our interviews where there was no reason for it to delve into Nigeria, except for the fact that she chose to drive it in that direction. And so I would just admonish her to understand that the danger with what she's doing is that she doesn't really know that in 100 years' time, I pray she becomes prime minister. Even after she has been prime minister, she's still going to be referred to Kemi Badenoch of Nigerian origin or whatever. But I do not think that the vice president was handled that matter well, for it is not the duty of a parent to scold a child publicly under those circumstances in a bit to do a bit of a pushback. If he wanted to do a pushback, because he is the vice president, it could give the impression that that is the policy direction of the country, which is not. I would have expected him to have lifted up the diplomatic courtesies of response without being that way. The wordings he used were not exactly hurtful. He didn't abuse her, let's be fair. But I think the part where he said she could drop her name, that was a little bit cheeky. I would have said it differently. I would have said something like, congratulations to our daughter, the leader of the Labour Party, of the Conservative Party. You go, girl. We hear all you say about the country. Every nation is a work in progress. We're believing that even while you were here, if nothing, you must have had a few good moments, maybe with your friends in primary school or with your friends in ICI, the air you breathe or the food you ate. You know, just summarize her and tell her that as you go along, the country is wishing you well. It's always going to be your country, anyhow you prime it. And we're sure that the greatest nation in the world, Nigeria, will continue to work very hard to repair some of those criticisms which we get every day, not only from you, from a lot of our citizens in diaspora. That's how to talk.
All right, brilliant. I'm going to ask you about 2-3 more questions, and then I'll start to bring people in. Can the people so far, can you make sure you have your cameras on so that the Otumba can interact fully with you? Let me take you to the Daily Farotimi space, another space that has generated, yes, another space that has generated so much controversy. So now we're talking about freedom of speech versus the freedom versus fundamental human rights for the other party. So where are you positioned in that, Otuba, the Daily Farotimi matter?
Thank you. I've written on it in a sober manner. Sober in the sense that I get what Dele is going through, because I've read some parts of the book and I feel the pain of how the system, how he sees the system. I get what he said happened in that incident. But I always say, be careful that you do not tar the entire institution. because of one or two or three or even 100 bad eggs. And I always say, for a lawyer, when you want to make comments, pray that once you are putting in other people's names, which could then hit them at the level of what they will consider to defamation and criminal libel or criminal defamation, the most difficult thing is you must be sure that there is evidence. And it is even more weighing because he's not a novice, he's a lawyer. And he understands that he must be asked to come and show proof. Of course, I am not saying that he's lying, and I'm not saying that I'm acknowledging the risk he's taking and the risk he's put himself in just to speak about what people talk about behind the backs of everybody. But I also know Chief Afe Babalola, not as a lawyer or anything. I know him as a human being. Many years ago, because I feel them asking leaders soft questions, I created something called the Lion's Den, where I was lion, and you come into my den, so to speak. And I'd gone to Chief Afe Babalola, and I had asked him a lot of questions. I asked him, why is your name Afe? Why does it look like a short form? How did you start? And I found out that he comes from some of the humblest backgrounds you can imagine. Not even having enough money to go to school like that, having to write the exams in correspondence. I saw the struggle of a man who worked very hard, who loved the law. He has put in more than 70 years in the legal profession. Now, if you roll back 70 years, you will understand that all these things they're calling now, MBA, status, NJC, this, that became the status and the structure by which they run the country. Men like this would have contributed a lot to the making. Yes, every society will not be immune from the decay happening in the society, but I would have preferred that Dele was more cautious. And now that he's putting in a book, that's done. It's already there. It's immortal. No matter what they do, that book would always be in somebody's desk.
Sorry, Otumba. People, we hear people are being sent to go and beg Are Afe Babalola, but it's not a begging matter anymore, is it? So is it that Dele Farotimi he retracts and apologizes or has his day in court? Because it's not something that you can beg for forgiveness.
Afe Babalola is right to take him to court. The reason is that when they make such claims and you don't challenge it, it's the truth. And the man is about 90-something years old. He has tried as much as he can underneath our world system to do good for himself. His Ekiti people, the king has even created an Ekiti day, an Afe Babalola day, which is like the deification of a human being while he's still alive. You can't write that about him and not expect him to be ballistic and be wondering, where is this coming from? Yes, the matter is there now. It has to be concluded. I have even offered a bigger suggestion that it is the duty of the NJC to set up a proper investigative panel, special investigative panel, SIP, to go and look at this thing that is being often rumored, and now someone has bravely put it in a book, suggesting that our court system is for wheeler dealers and that the judiciary is only for the highest bidder. That's too dangerous. The integrity of the entire thing is at stake, and it is not enough for them to make it Afe versus Farotimi. The judiciary itself should challenge itself to go and figure out what's going on here. A lot of these things are just mismanaged disappointment of not winning court cases. Some of them are just outright lies. Some of them are just people making up stories that they cannot verify. When you go to court...
Otumba, would you say it was naive of Dele Farotimi to have done this?
No, I've been listening to Dele for some time. I've been concerned with him for a while, and I'll share a personal experience with him. before we got to 2023 election, he had been invited to come and deliver a talk somewhere, and I had also been invited to come and deliver a talk. And when I got to the talk, I spoke before him. I spoke, you know, in my opinion, in a manner that did not shame or put his candidate down. I spoke in a manner that said about let's try and improve the democracy and all of those things that you expect people that are statesmen to do. And I sat there and it was his turn. And he got onto the place and started saying, oh, you know, he didn't even care that he knew that I was sort of a PDP man and an article person somehow. He sat there and he was saying they don't want Tifnumbu and they don't want Atiku or something like, you know, those kinds of jargons. I was getting angry in my stomach. I was raging. And I had hoped that he would wait behind so that I could have given him his full dose. Because if his mouth is dirty, I can make mine even more dirty than him. But he didn't wait. So he just said that. He threw Atiku under the bus. He threw Tinubu under the bus. He created a messiah of Peter Obi and walked off. I was very upset, but I thought, well, he's just playing to the excitement of the people that are cheering him on. And when you hear him speak, it's not like him to be moderate in his conversation. He'll talk like, you know, like he's so sanctimonious. He will speak about the judiciary in a manner that you wonder why they still allow him to be in the profession. He will have no respect for judge. He will not have no respect for court. He will have no respect for the country's constitution. He has no respect for the presidency. He has no respect for INEC. He has no respect for anybody. And you will almost get the impression that what's wrong with this guy? Are you trying to? Do we know Peter Obi now? And we don't want to return like for like. We say, but why are you doing this? If you're saying because you want to support Peter, you can support him. You don't need to be, what the hell are you talking about? You want us to bring you all the kinds of mob that we can even bring on your man? And we don't do that because we don't believe that we should be making life difficult for ourselves. But Dele was just going one step over the window, one step over the bar, one step over the bar until he jumped into the Atlantic Ocean. I've written and I've told Chief Babalola in my piece that, sir, be careful that the reputation you are trying to protect doesn't even get further destroyed if you are the way you're going about it. But the important thing is that, yes, it is the duty of the judiciary to go and figure out how to do the kind of investigation that can make all of us know that Dele is wrong, if Dele is wrong. And if Dele is right, then Dele is the hero because he has come forward to say things that people are saying behind their backs, but they don't have the courage or they like their skin too much to say it. But I would just say a lawyer knows that defamation and libel, if there was no such terminology in law, there won't be case precedents of law in it. Criminal defamation is a serious matter. You don't expect a 95-year-old, 93-year-old man who has spent all his life doing the best he can, done what affair has been affair. He's never a judge. He's always been a lawyer. Should Affair come to court and lose a case for you? Or should you come to court and you and your friends go to court and cross sword with an Affair Babalola? And if he wins you, you will not accept that he can win you on the merits of it. And if you have evidence, provide it. So you see, this is one of the reasons why I started the alternative. We cannot relinquish opposition space to people who see no good in the country. They will implode the country. They will depress the people with national anger, and they won't even have a single solution to be able to fix anything. Give them even a small position, they will not be able to do the work. Nigeria is not an easy country to lead because we have a lot of poor people, yes, who may desire to be rich and to be all that, which I think they deserve. Government is not doing as much as it can do. There are no consequences to those of them in government who have taken our money. We can't see any commensurate consequences. But does that mean that all of us in the country are monsters?
Yeah, all right. I want to take you to about 2 more questions, and I'll start to bring people in. People have your cameras on if you possibly can. I'm just